So we're now mid 2020, and as I'm sure you all know, poverty level is rising, middle class is shrinking, evictions are coming, and the governor's already talking about increasing the taxes of the very people who lost everything. As we speak, if you don't know what the Federal Reserve is doing, I highly suggest you read about it from real sources, not from the mass media. And if your blood doesn't start boiling, then I don't know what will. And things will just get worse in 2020, but also beyond, at least for the next few years. And a lot of good people out there trying to help each other. I've also tried to help. I gave away some money that I had won from my thesis to some families who didn't have food here in my state. But then I was there myself in a dire situation. So there's just so much we all can do. And my worst worry is the mental decline of people, because once you start declining in your mental health, everything else within the body is affected in a negative way. And that is when things will get even worse than it is now. If we lose our mental health, we are more susceptible to losing the game, if you will. And that is not a good situation to be in, because it's very easy to get into this mentality where we are pretty much fed with bad news every day. And most people are very angry, and they are gearing their anger towards their fellow human beings, where in fact they should gearing their anger towards the 1%, the very power that be who is doing all this. And as we talked in the past, they should also be focusing their anger towards doing something constructive. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So the reason I woke up this morning and I thought I have to say this is because we all can do something. I realize that my way of contributing is through these videos, and also through the ebooks that I'm writing, and also through my music, because I am gearing more towards empowering others, towards the mental health as well as the cellular health. But there is a lot people can do depending on their background and depending on their choice as to what they want to do. A lot of people are doing it already, but we need more. We need more, and we need to be more strategizing, and we need to be more mindful. Now, have you ever thought why some people thrive in the world, seemingly don't get sick, they don't even retire, many of which we already see in politics? A lot of officials they're extremely old, and they're still going, and it doesn't look like they are getting sick. It doesn't look like they are struggling in any ways, mentally at least. And I mean, some of them are even 80 plus, and they're still holding interviews, and they're still holding press conferences, and they're very active. And the way they talk, they're very strong. They have very strong opinions that goes against a lot, but they still do it. On the other hand, you can see very young people who are not in the position of power, but their health is declining, they gain weight, they lose weight, they commit suicide, etc. So it begs the question, why is it that some people thrive? It's against all odds, and you would think that they should retire at this point, but they're not. And then others who have the rest of their lives in front of them, and they are in decline, and basically all they do all day long are things that potentially harm them in a long run. That begs the question why that is. And one of the things I was obsessed with during these past 10 years that I did my study was this question. Along with my school, where I did research, that was all I did, both for bachelor's and for the grad studies, and my work in tech, that was also research. That's all I did. I would also spend time, when I did have extra time, to do my own research in terms of some of the fundamental questions that I was interested in. And one of them was this, is that why is it that some people thrive? And so I started gathering data, anecdotal data, along with all these books that I read, along with my own research where I asked people questions, along with the research that others have done. We call it literature review when you do a research and you have a hypothesis. And one of the things that came out from my sort of own research was that most of these people had one thing in common, and that was purpose. They had given themselves a sense of purpose that innately and from inside gave them the urge to move forward, but more importantly, the hope to move forward. If you remember when we talked about hope, the frequencies of hope within the brain as well as within the cells are extremely, extremely empowering. Now, you might say that, oh, these people are evil. That's not what I'm saying. It's regardless of the purpose, because whoever has the purpose, they think that they are right. So we don't need to agree with someone's purpose. Their purpose may actually be, in our mind, very evil. It doesn't matter. As long as the person we're talking about has set a purpose for themselves and stick with it, whether it's good or bad doesn't matter, because for that person, if you ask them, their purpose is great, even if they want to destroy the world, let's say. But other people think it's not because they have different opinions. But that is not the point. The point is that that person inside himself or herself decided for something to do, decided that they had a mission, had a purpose, and then did everything they could to move forward with that agenda. And that is the common denominator that we see across. If you look at, for example, some of the oldest officials today who are extremely controversial, if you go on their social media, more people are against them than they are for them when they make an announcement, yet still they're going. You might say, oh, because they have money. That's just part of it. Maybe I know they have a lot of money, because I look up their net worth. Every time I'm interested in looking at, a pattern, I look at everything. And they can afford amazing doctors, but that's not it, because sometimes some people, we've seen it throughout the history, they have a lot of money and they have best doctors, yet they still get really ill, they die prematurely, and they have really bad death. So that's not because of it. It's mainly because the moment a human being loses hope, loses purpose, they innately have nothing more to live for. And as a result, their physique, their mentality, they all start to decline. And people age faster, they put on weight or lose weight, etc. And God forbid, worst case scenario, hurt themselves. So it begs the question to try to understand, what is it with purpose? What is it with hope that give a human being so much inner strength such that they can forego the nature's supposedly issues that supposedly could bring them down to their knees, but it doesn't. It actually makes them even stronger. That energy just rolls in. It's like a what are these called? The snowball effect. And that's exactly how it is. That's exactly how brain waves, brain frequencies work in the brain and outside of the brain, and then it permeates the rest of the body, and also has a much more influence than we want to give it credit for on our cells, cellular functions, and cellular frequencies. And we are able to measure that. Part of my dissertation was also to measure emotional aspect of frequencies that I measured with a device. So if a person, a human being, really wants to do themselves a favor, is for him or her to set a purpose for themselves. I've come to call it a purpose that we set for ourselves, a gift that we can give ourselves. That is the best gift that we can give ourselves, especially during hard times. Because once we come up with a purpose, which by the way doesn't mean to be something grandiose, it could be something very small, and you can change it. You can be very flexible about it and change it and say that, okay, this purpose really didn't work for me, I'm gonna choose another one. The choice is yours. The choice is absolutely yours, and you can use it to your benefit. Once we make a choice to give ourselves the gift of hope / purpose, and we start acting accordingly based on this purpose on a daily basis, immediately we will notice a more empowered state, which will result in empowered thoughts, which will result in empowered cells, and all of them together can absolutely make and create a much better way of living and also way of being. And everything else after that will follow. Everything else. And the purpose can be something very small that you choose, or maybe something very big. It's much better to start with something small because it's a bit in our own mind is doable, and then we can just build upon it later on. So let's say hypothetically that you really want to get involved with the politics of your local community because you are disgusted by the way in which the officials are making decisions. If you know of people who are doing it, then you can set up the purpose for yourself to say, okay, from now until, let's say, end of the year, I am going to help these people. So, and then make sure that you take action towards that, for example. And then you can just do what you think you can do. At some point, we might think that, oh, this is too much work. But once we start working on it, you will see that it will have a snowball effect. So it will just make you feel better and better. Now, at the same time, we may have financial worries and eviction worries and all these unfortunate events. But there are pockets during daytime that we could isolate towards doing just the purpose that we have set for ourselves. And that pocket will have snowball effect, because it will eventually, once we stick with it, permeate the rest of our lives and the rest of our beings and the rest of our cellulars. The parts that I'm writing, it'll go into depth and why we have come to believe that that is not possible, because they have fed this to us since we were kids, but that is not true. We have the power to change it in a way that it affects and impacts the wholeness of the frequencies, the wholeness even of these frequencies of the perception that we talked about last time. It's extremely powerful. And then because of that, you will notice that other things will also get influence in your life. And these are seemingly very small steps we can do. The issue is to actually get up and do it, because once we are in a mental decline and we have lost hope, it's very hard. So that would be our job to do, to really start with that point of thought that we talked about. So tying this all back in to the gist of what I was trying to talk about is that the electromagnetic field of purpose, which includes a lot of hope, surrounding each and every one person in life, is so powerful, guys, that it will embody you and it will protect you. And after that protection, it would also empower you to such an extent that you too will have the willpower to move forward. Then whatever these extremely old and supposedly, weak people, officials who are making all these decisions in our lives, then it makes sense why they're still able to seamlessly move forward, and they're still going to work. They're 80 plus years and they're still doing it. They have set a purpose for themselves. I may not agree with their purpose, I may hate it, but nonetheless it's theirs, and that is what gives them power from inside. And if you guys also remember that we talked about the reptilian brain versus empathetic brain versus logical brain, the reptilian brain actually takes much less energy than the other ones. And so for that reason, they're also able to harness the power that they get from this purpose that they have given themselves, even if it's evil, and then have the reptilian brain really work like automatically. And that is how they gain even more and more and more power. So even things are extremely hard right now, and they will just get harder. Give yourself the gift of purpose, even if it's something very small, and be strategic about it. It's not about doing something today and then letting it go tomorrow. It needs to be dealt with and addressed and seen upon as a real purpose. Otherwise, it doesn't have the power. It doesn't have the effect that we're trying to look for. So it really you need to believe it. It needs to be important enough for you to get you up and doing it, if that makes sense. And then once you start doing it, you don't have to stick to it forever. It can change. In fact, purposes evolve, and that is the job of the human being, to evolve, to create and to evolve. That's it. So what I'm trying to say is that my heart really goes out to everybody. But I also know that as human beings in 2020, we're going through a lot, but I see it as a great, amazing time for us to learn more about who we are and also learn tips and tricks to create a more stronger person of ourselves than we were before. We're all strong. If you're familiar with my work, I'm totally in line and in love with the humanity and the human power. So we are very strong, but we have been given now the gift of becoming even more stronger by getting to know ourselves at a more in-depth level, so that we could make ourselves stronger and move forward, and hopefully we will come out much stronger than we were before. Think about it. I did the research, so I came to see the result. But if you also start reading about people who really achieved something in their lives against all odds, maybe they were even, not physically well, and they still did it. The moment it started for them to turn around is the moment they gave themselves the purpose, even if it's a small one. So thanks again, guys, for joining me back, and also take care of yourself, and if you like what I'm doing, share the videos. Take care. Bye.